Once again, good morning, everyone. I'm sharing my screen and I'm just showing what I just updated in Canvas or just published in Canvas for you guys. So we're going to build off of what we did last time on Monday, where we made an Axon drawing and we went through the motions of sort of going, doing the make 2D, extracting this sort of flattened drawing with all the right layers on and off, exporting it to Illustrator, and then doing some editing and post-production in Illustrator. So we're going to go through that workflow again, demonstrating it. This time we're going to do something slightly different. Then we're going to make a slightly more robust drawing. In this case, it's an axon, but we'll sort of pull some things apart vertically in order to make what's called an exploded axon drawing. Right. Your assignment over the weekend is to start this process of an exploded axon drawing for your project, similar to the one that we do today or that I demonstrate in class. Making a copy of your model, pulling things apart in the z-axis, setting your viewport to Axon view, and figuring out which isometric, northeast, northwest, whatever vantage point you want, or what's the most interesting or shows the most. Then doing the make 2D and then exporting, bringing it into Illustrator, and then doing some of that post-production. I don't expect complete perfection, but again, the key thing is that over the weekend, you do some of this heavy lifting where the computer does some of this stuff for you. You spend a few hours here and there cleaning up this drawing. And then you're able to submit a draft that we can have a nice, fruitful discussion about next week. Next week, we'll talk about these deliverables you've been making, right? Both these Axon drawings and these perspectives in Photoshop, these collages, and how we'll compose them onto board so that you can actually complete your project one and then submit the final version. All right, so more about that tomorrow or next week. And so again, let's just sort of take stock of where we are. It's the 22nd of September. I won't see you again until after the weekend on Monday. We'll be talking about exploded axon drawings. I've created a new assignment for you guys to save that PDF in Illustrator. Right, in Illustrator, you can save an AI file, but you can also save as a PDF. PDF is portable document format. It's like the universal file type that can open up on just about anything, including your smartphone and tablets and things like that, as well as your laptop. So the idea of a PDF is that it's sort of this universal file type that everybody can sort of view, right? So you have your Illustrator file. You can open that up in Illustrator and edit it and continue to edit it. When you need to submit something, then you can save as a PDF, and then anybody can sort of look at it and open it up. So the rest of we'll do this demonstration today. Then the rest of class time will be an extended help session. I really expect you guys, if you haven't submitted these perspective drafts, and I know that a number of you haven't, which is surprising to me. What I did is I went through in Canvas and I extended the late submission period until this Friday. So I want you to submit that stuff. They're just drafts. Even if you're not completely done, I want you to sort of show me where you're at. And if you're having problems with this process, several of you I've met outside of class, over Zoom or in person, just sort of getting you caught up and answering questions and doing these troubleshooting sessions, either in class or outside of class, right? Today, the second half of class will be another one of those sessions where it's just there to help you out and get you over the hump. You need to keep up, right? You fall behind, it becomes really hard to keep up. So again, you have until Friday to make a late submission for these perspective drafts, these PSDs or JPEGs or PDFs from from Photoshop that were due this past Monday, right? So again, make sure that you submit these so I can give you some credit for those. Again, they're drafts. So, the point is that I can sort of look at them and if there's something that you need to fix, I can not only give you the points for the assignment, but as a number of you found out, I can make some comments like you need to tone down the color maps, or you need to, make sure that the brush is feathered so it doesn't look like you have a sort of green stripe going through your composition, but that it sort of fades out and it's much more gradual. That kind of feedback is very quick feedback I can give you. And then it makes a colossal difference in the sort of the quality that you get at the end, right? So none of this is meant to be hard where you just build up and have a lot of work at the end. But if you keep up with this class, what you'll find is that the steps that you perform all along, you were generating the final results, right? And you have a chance for feedback in class and outside of class. Verbal feedback and sort of written feedback in the form of comments to sort of tweak these and sort of make them just that much better, so that you get an A. All right, And honestly, there's a learning curve here, and I've had it to, sort of one-on-one help some people with the modeling, or, some stuff in Grasshopper, or maybe some things in Photoshop. So, at this point, I don't have much sympathy. Some folks were really behind, but they had the gumption to sort of contact me and say, look, it's not that I'm not working hard. It's just I don't understand some things. I want to sort of show you what step by step what I'm doing, and you can sort of cut in and tell me what I'm doing wrong, or what I'm missing. Right. So take full advantage of that, because you won't always have me looking over your shoulder, available to sort of help you out. So, do take advantage of the fact that you do this time. All right. So, and of course, today's lecture and demonstration will be posted up here as soon as that's after the end of class today, sometime before studio time. Okay. Again, if you go to the modules, you'll see this page, right? 22nd of September. We're still in project 1. We're going to be wrapping that up towards the end of, actually not at the end of next week, but after that weekend, right? So, and then we'll start project 2, which will be grid shells and some digital fabrication with laser cutting. So going from digital to physical, right? So we'll start to design things digitally, and then we'll sort of go from bits to atoms, right? And start to talk about tolerances and prototyping and performance. All right, so with that all said, let's talk about exploded axons. Here I have Windows, and I'll just go ahead and fire up Rhino 7. So again, I'm going to just go through the motions before, but that workflow again to demonstrate it. Again, it comes with practice, sort of understanding how to go from model geometry to rendered raster graphics, or to make 2D vector graphics, drawings, things like that. So again, we'll just continue to practice that throughout the semester, and this will be another sort of demonstration of this workflow to go from surface and sub-D geometry to a sort of flattened line drawing that then we can really sort of craft in Illustrator in order to make it the most beautiful line drawing you've ever done up to this point, right? That's always what you do in any of your projects and any of your assignments. And so you try your best, and while also trying new things. All right, so here's where we left off before, right? We just made a sort of static flattened axon drawing. You can see this is in top view. It's sort of flattened out on my XY plane. This outline around it was the outline of the viewport. And so anyway, I'll just, again, if you could look at it and let's say this parallel or perspective view, this is parallel view or axon view, right? You can see that it's quite literally a flattened line drawing, right? If I tilt it, you can see it's completely flat on the XY plane. I'm just going to select this and delete it. And you can also see once I delete this, it's 60,000, almost 61,000 curves, right? That's a lot of information. But it also made these make 2D layers: visible, curves, scene silhouettes, tangents, viewport rectangles. Just going to go ahead and right click make 2D and say delete layer, and delete all the sub layers beyond it. Those layers are generated when we do the make 2D operation automatically. And I'm just going to go ahead and, I didn't have to delete them, but I thought I would, just so we can again simulate, let's say from scratch, what we're doing here. I'm just going to move these viewports over and try to even them out, the balance left and right and top and bottom. There we go. So we have top, front, right, parallel. Again, I can double click on any of these viewport labels, toggle that viewport to fill the whole screen. I double click again, I go back to 4 viewports, right? I can see all these ortho views, top, right, and front, as well as some sort of 3-dimensional projection, a parallel projection, or a perspectival projection, depending on what this is set to. All right, so now let's get to this. So what I was talking about, maybe a little different this time around, is that we're going to select some of this geometry and sort of pull it apart in that z-axis, so it looks like these sort of exploded axons, where we can sort of isolate these different systems piece by piece, right? And so I'm going to very carefully sort of position this 3-dimensional view. Mine's still set to ISO, and I'm just going to leave it that way. I don't really necessarily care at the moment. I'm just going to pull it down. I'm going to give myself some screen real estate up here, right? And then in my front and right views, I'm also going to sort of look at what I'm selecting, and then I'll move things in Z. It's really easy to move things just straight up and down with my ortho lock on. in one of these side views from the front or from the right-hand side, right? Once I get these things selected. All right, so sit back and just watch what I do. Make sure that you understand it. And then you can try along at home if you want. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just double check and look at these layers once more. And I'm just going to think about this for just 1 second. Excuse me. Pardon me. Ooh, gross. And so let's see. Pipe space frame, top curve profiles, top chords, new surface, first, second, third, vertical space frame, right? So what I want to make sure is that I have, right? Let's say my roof space frame or trusses on a layer, right? And I have my vertical space frame and trusses on a different layer, right? And that appears to be the case. Why not, right? I'm going to turn off these other layers that I don't need, right? It's always a good thing before I do a complex make 2Ds, I turn off anything I don't actually need, or maybe it's hidden and I don't, there's no reason for it to try to compute anything on its own, right? So I'm just going to selectively turn off layers. So I have just the sort of, let's see, these wall conditions that I gave you. And then the vertical space frame that sort of cuts through the space, and then the roof space frame that sort of covers the space on the top there. So I'm gonna go ahead and save. Right, there we are. Okay. And so I'm gonna have this axon, let's see here. All right, there we go, great. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and select this pipe space frame layer, and I'm just going to go ahead and select all the objects. I'm going to right click on the layer label, right? And say select objects. It'll select all the objects on this layer. In this case, that's sort of that covered canopy. For whatever reason, ooh, it looks like my walls, I've accidentally selected these and changed the layer that they're on. So I'm just going to go ahead and select that really quickly. Not sure why that's the case there. Come on now. Sometime today. Right, I'm getting a lot of curves. I'm not sure why. So in this case, when this happens and I don't necessarily need these curves, I already have all of these curves that I needed. They're on different layers and I've had them turned off. So at some point in time, I accidentally extracted a wireframe I didn't need, or I have some redundant lines or curves here and there. So what I can do, there's several different ways to do this, right? Some of you have come to me with these problems, right? So if I just have a bunch of curves and they're mixed in with all of these surfaces, and I just want to select the curves and get rid of them, right? There's a way just to select all the curves in my model space that are on right now. And that's typing in the command SEL, short for select, and then CRV, short for curve. So cell curve, right? And it's going to tell me, oh, there's 814 curves that I'm selected, and I'm just going to hit delete now. And get rid of those, and that's extra stuff that I didn't need, and now it's gone, which is great, because I love getting rid of that stuff. And I'm just going to, again, select this sub D, make sure that this is on the correct layer. Okay, it is. It's on the sub D layer. Okay, great. All right. A couple of you, sometimes you accidentally copy something twice when you only wanted to copy something once. And so you have duplicate items. So when you try to select a curve, it comes up with that menu and says, well, which curve were you trying to select? And it's the same curve, it looks like each time. If you have duplicates and you need to get rid of the duplicate items, the command for that is SEL, short for select, and then DUP, short for duplicate, right? So you're going to select duplicate, cell dupe. Right? When I click on that, it says it's found 306 duplicate surfaces. Oh, that's handy. So I'm gonna go ahead and select the duplicates. I'm gonna go ahead and delete those. Yeah, I don't need those duplicate items. Get rid of that stuff, right? All right. And so, that was just, again, duplicate redundant geometry that was taking up space in your memory, taking up computing power. We just got rid of it in one fell swoop, right? So cell dupe, cell curves, or cell surf, or those sorts of things. If you type in SEL for select, you can start to see that there's a number of options here for selecting the last object that was created, or last objects that were generated, or selecting a certain type of geometry, curves or points or surfaces, etc., right? Or duplicate, cell duped, That's a really handy one when you have accidentally made copies or you have multiple duplicate items and you just want to sort of get rid of everything, just want the originals, right? Okay, so I think I've made sure that this is nice and clean. I'm just going to go ahead and save one last time here. All right. Then we go back to my layers once this is done saving. 75 megabytes. It's not too bad, but okay, now it's down to 68. All right, so I'm going to go to, let's say, my roof space frame. I'm just going to go to this layer. I'm going to say right-click on it and say select objects, right? And you'll see that these will pop up here. They'll start to turn magenta. All right, that's great. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the copy command, right? I can type it in where you can see it's this icon here where my cursor is over, right? Where you start to see a white box and then a bunch of blue copies all over the place, right? So copy, and it's going to, again, you can always follow the instructions of the command line, right? Just like in Grasshopper where you have a widget, like let's say copy, and then you have a bunch of inputs, right? Like what do you want to copy? And then where do you want to copy from? And then where do you want to copy to, right? It's going to ask you the same parameters and ingredients up here. So we already had these things selected, so it knows what we wanted to copy. Point to copy from, so I'm just going to click, and then point to copy to. I'm just going to go up vertically. I'm going to make sure my ortho lock is on so that I can only move vertically, right, straight up or down in the Z direction. And I'm just going to make a copy of this way up above and click. Right, once I click, it's going to make a copy right there. It'll ask me if I want to continue to make copies. When I'm done making copies, in this case I am, I'm just going to hit enter. So I end the command, right? And now we have these this ceiling, right? This roof and Axon. I'm just going to again, before I do anything else, I'm just going to make sure I select it, this new copy. I'm going to make sure that I might zoom out here just a little more and just move it this time. MOVE is the command, right? Move. You can just type it in the command line, right? So it's part of this muscle memory is learning what to do with your left mouse button, your right mouse button, right? You can always repeat the last command with your right mouse button, and then you're using your left hand for the escape key or to start typing it on your keyboard, right? Space bar on your keyboard also is like enter, right? So you can use it to, just like your enter key, to repeat the last command or to end a command, right? So MOVE for move, and then I'm just going to click with my mouse. There we are. All right, great. And now I'm going to do the exact same thing with this vertical space frame. So I'm going to go to that layer. Yeah, there we go. And select all the objects in that layer. Right click on that layer and then select objects. They'll pop up as magenta. The exact same thing here. I'm just going to move those. Click. I hit move. I don't want to move them. I want to copy them, right? Because I want the whole sort of drawing down here, and then I want these sort of exploded parts exploded away, right? So copy. There we are. Ta-da. All right. Just want to make sure that that sort of clears. There we go. Maybe it's sort of midway in between. There's enough space there between, and there's sort of comparable amount of space between, let's say, the three different systems that I have going here, right? Sort of. All right. So now that I'm done copying, I'm going to hit enter, right? It says press enter when done, right? You can always look at that command line, and it'll tell you exactly what it wants you to do next in order to, what it needs to complete the command that you're giving it or to end the command that you're giving it, etc. All right. I'm just going to go ahead and click off into space here and deselect everything. Now I can see that I have my system here, my architecture, and now I have these two systems sort of exploded upwards, right, in the Z direction. All right, so from here, it's time to just sort of compose this, and then we'll do the make 2D, and then we'll export it, and then we'll start to clean things up in Illustrator. So again, this will just be practice. But again, I'm just sort of making sure that I have my file management, my layer management going here. That I make copies, I get rid of redundant things, I make sure everything's right. I start to make copies, and now it's time to sort of compose again my drawing. So I'm just going to go ahead and double click on this parallel. Let's go to set view. I right click on the label, set view, isometric. I have northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest. Let me just go around and check and see which one looks the best. There's northeast, maybe, there we are. I'll just go around until, and this is kind of comparable to what we were using before. Yeah, maybe I'll just keep it here. Yeah. All right. Once you have this and you like the, which direction you're looking at it, right? If you think about this as a being on your model on a turntable that's sort of moving in 90-degree increments as you go from northeast to northwest to southwest or whatever. You know, you can sort of get a shot at what you're looking at here. Once you have this, I'm just going to, again, save it. All right, there we are. Taking a little bit, so. It's probably going to tell me that Autodesk needs an update. Please don't do that right now, Autodesk, because I don't want anything else going on. Okay, so now that I have that, it's time to type in the make 2D command. Make 2D, all one word. Right? Select the objects to draw. I'm just going to click and drag. Select all of this. Right? It's going to be a really nice, complex drawing. We're going to make this really large. You don't want, I'm not actually requiring you guys to print this out, but if you did, it would be quite a large thing, right? To sort of think about this massive drawing. It's going to be really gorgeous, right? On like, you know, 36 by 36 with some perspectives composed. We'll talk about that again tomorrow, or not, sorry, not tomorrow, but the next time we meet on next week on Monday. Okay, select the objects to draw. I've selected everything. I'm going to hit enter, right? And so that's the first step it needs to do to make 2D. Now it's going to bring up a box with some settings. Sometime today, there we are. And it's going to say, okay, the current view is set to parallel. Are you sure you want to draw this view? Yes, right? So we want to draw this axon that we have up on our screen. And then again, I'm just going to go through here. I believe view is already toggled by default. I think from input objects is already toggled by default. I'm just going to leave those. Tangent edges, I'm going to have clicked. Hidden lines, I'm going to uncheck. Scene silhouette, check. Viewport rectangle, check. Group output and register with previous uncheck, right? The clipping plane intersections, we'll talk about clipping planes later, but we don't have any clipping planes. So it's grayed out. I can't check it or uncheck it depending on what it's set to. So I'm not going to worry about that, but this is what I'm doing. Check the tangent edges, scene silhouette, viewport rectangle. Yes, yes, yes. Hidden lines, group output, register with previous, uncheck. No, no, no. All right. Once I have that, I'm ready to go. Okay, right? And so it's going to take a few minutes here. And really it is. You'll see this progress bar along the bottom, right? Set to 0%. Right now it's white. And you'll start to see blue sort of make its way across this progress laterally. And again, this will take a while. There's a lot of information here, right? Now, the trade-off here is that, you know, you might get this sort of blue spinning wheel for a while, but then again, it beats the hell out of, you know, taking 8 hours or 10 hours to try to draw all this by hand by yourself, right? So your laptop is doing the heavy lifting for you, right? You're using all that processing and memory to maximum advantage computationally. You know, we wouldn't probably, we're able to draw and model and manage this sort of complex space frame systems, you know, because of the digital model. So let's take full advantage of that. We probably wouldn't draw this by hand with pencil and pen. Although some of you probably thought that you did things this complex, you know, last year with me and with me or Jose or Michael or Travis, but or the other folks who taught in the spring, you know. So, but here we are. We're just waiting. It's up to 8%, right? You can always sort of track progress, 9, 10, and it really will take a few minutes in order to complete this step, right? So at this point, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you've saved. Right, you want to make sure that you have some time for your laptop to sort of sit here and crank this out. Right, you might be able to, you know, you schedule it so that you can, you know, this is a time where you can walk away, use the restroom, check your stocks and you know, or whatever, go through email on your phone, eat a donut, drink coffee, whatever it is that you do. But at this point, you know, you're just going to let the computer do a bunch of stuff for you. And if it takes half an hour, well, that's half an hour well spent once you're done, right? And again, I guarantee if you tried if I try to draw this, or, you know, and some of you are more talented artists than I am, right? I realize, but if I try to draw this, it would take me like days, like just constant, nonstop work in order to draw this, and it wouldn't look half as good. So again, just think about this for a moment, right? I came from, you know, a generation where we started with parallel bars and X-Acto knives and fine liner marker sets and things like that, and vellum and mylar drawings. And then at the end, when I was doing my B-Arc thesis project, I was typing things in DOS and having light ray calculate a renderosity solution that I could bring into 3D Studio Max and things like that. So believe me, back when I started this stuff, renderings would take like 36 hours, right? Not like 36 minutes, right? So 36 minutes is smooth, right? 36 minutes to make a, let's say a make 2D drawing, or in this case, it's just a few minutes, maybe 6 minutes or something. I don't know how long it's been taking, but it's up to almost to 70%, and it's starting to chug along, right? So I think it's starting to sort of make sense of things, and there we go. Yeah, it's going. Right? So believe me, these days are, you know, you don't know how good you have it, right? I remember having to sort of take my model and try to, you know, put it on an iOmega zip disk and transfer it on 3 different school computers, and then try to lock each of those computers, because each one would take 36 to 48 hours of just sort of nonstop rendering. And then I would come back in 2 days after, you know, and see, and then, you know, inevitably there'd be some mistakes. I'd have to redo the whole thing, and it would take, you know, 2 more days, right? So trust me when I say that, you know, 2 hours or 20 minutes, you know, those times seem downright speedy now. All right, so we're almost there, 82%, right? And again, I'm just doing this for the first time here, so we have to wait. Won't be too much longer, but we'll have to wait for this to generate the drawing, so then we can export it out to Illustrator. When it comes to this, again, it's a lot to crunch here, right? Even for a faster computer, when you have this much information, it has to sort of flatten it all out and try to draw it and find edges and all that sort of stuff, and trim and make sure it sort of works out all the occlusions, right? So one thing I recommend is, if your computer was already sort of lagging anyway, you know, save, reboot, clear out that memory, you know, make sure that your processor is working at full capacity. Don't have other apps open, close Photoshop, close your browser, close Spotify, you know, anything else. You know, Zoom actually bogs down my machine quite a bit, surprisingly, particularly when I'm A, sharing my screen, and B, recording the shared screen. So, you know, this is taking a little longer than it normally would, you know, like let's say right before class if I generated this. But again, set yourself up for success. You know, don't have a lot of memory intensive, other apps that are memory intensive up in the background, particularly if this is taking a while. You know, you can complain to me all you want, but at the end of the day, we have several different ways of doing this. Another thing is, if you're really having some massive problems, and let's say your machine continues to run out of memory, it might be that you just have too much information for your machine, in which case you can go back to Grasshopper, dial back one of those sliders, so you have fewer divisions, which means fewer trusses, which means fewer poly surfaces, right? So utilize that parametric capacity that you have, right? And find that sweet spot, making something that looks really nice and dynamic and complex, but isn't going to crash your machine every time you try to render it or make a 2D drawing of it, right? So that's where that parametric model really comes in handy, is you can change all of these parameters and not spend another 10 days redrawing it all by hand manually, right? Or remodeling it, right? Just, you know, change a couple of numbers and then everything updates, right? That's the key. We're almost there, 93%, right? So, so again, just think about those things, right? Work smart as well as working hard. And I think that's part of what you're always learning in school, is how to not only work hard, right, and you know, continuing to develop your work ethic, because I know you guys are hard workers and you're smart. You wouldn't be here if you weren't, right? But to work smart, right, and to sort of balance between working smart and working hard, right? None of these things are easy to do, but once you can start to develop those workflows and start to think a few steps ahead, you can start to work smarter, right? So that's why we practice these workflows over and over again, so that you can begin to develop that sort of memory, both the sort of cognitive memory of sort of thinking a few steps ahead, but also the muscle memory of using that mouse, right? The left mouse, the right mouse, the keyboard, holding down the shift button, and suddenly you're panning instead of tumbling or rotating, those sorts of things, right? The muscle memory that comes with these programs is just as important, right? And becoming proficient with them. So practice, practice, practice. You can watch YouTube videos all day. Don't make an expert. Practice does, right? And in fact, some people think it takes 10,000 hours of practice before you can become an expert on anything, right? So suffice to say, we have a ways to go. But, you know, again, the application of this stuff, I think in your other classes really helps. So, you know, if it comes to C-Tech and you have to make let's say a masonry wall, right? There are ways to do that in Grasshopper, right? There are ways to do that in Rhino, if it's appropriate, right? Things that you're doing in Studio, right? Window frames, curtain walls, space frames, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? So you can begin to sort of utilize this stuff to do better. And at the same time, it sort of reinforces your learning. 96. Oh, we're so close. It seems like here, these last sort of 10% stretch, down the stretch, but it's sort of slowing down here. I wonder why. Maybe it has to just sort of generate all the lines. I have a feeling it's going to sit here at like 96, 97, and then suddenly it'll be done. Let's test my hypothesis here. If not, this could be a really quick exit for the rest of class here, right? I really wanted to sort of generate this and export it out to Illustrator and go back to those Illustrator steps one more time. There we go, 97. Yeah, it's starting to go. You just gotta have a little more patience. And so again, just to recount what we're gonna do after this is done generating, I'm just sort of keeping my eye on this status bar. But what we'll do is we'll look at it in the XY plane. So we'll look at it from top view. We'll select it all. We'll double check the layers. We'll export selected and generate an Illustrator file directly from Rhino. We can open up that Illustrator or that Illustrator file in Illustrator. And then what we'll do is we'll go through the layers. We'll start to resize the documents, right? Then we'll resize our drawing according to the documents. Then we'll start to look at things like line weights and line types and line coloration. Just double check all those things really quickly. And then we'll start to turn selected layers on and off and start to clean things up. We'll have to do some selective deleting, and then we'll probably have to do some selective drawing in order to sort of fill in the gaps, particularly for these scene silhouettes, right? So that's the name of the game here. Okay, so now it's bogged down at 97. We'll see if it happens. While this is going, I'm just gonna go ahead and open up my Adobe Illustrator window here. All right, get that chugging along. Again, thinking a couple steps ahead. I know I'm gonna need Illustrator, so I'll go ahead and open that. There we are. Yeah, there was the drawing that we were working on. All right, back to here. 97%, we are excruciatingly close. I wonder why it goes fast sometimes and then slow other times. It's watch is gonna like take forever and then it'll tell me like it's ran out of memory. And that'll happen sometimes, in which case, again, you might need to go back and revise the density, rebake some things back into your Rhino model, just slightly less complex with fewer items, right? But you have all of that stuff sort of saved in different layers, so it shouldn't be too bad. You need to go back. 98%. It's a final countdown. We should like, man, count it down, right? Come on, 98%. Boy, let's go. Just want to keep going here. Come on now. Come on, Rhino. You can do it. By the way, some of your perspectives drafts were really looking nice. I mean, just super nice. And so, you know, there was a couple of constructive comments I gave to some of you. You know, if I thought maybe you just needed to adjust, let's say, some scaled figures or how the scaled figures meet the floor, or the coloration, or beefing up the contrast for your base renderings and things like that. So again, just sort of putting it all together. The first couple of times, you know, these first drafts, I thought you guys by and large did a great job. And again, if you haven't submitted those, just submit them, right? Put them up on Canvas, and so I can see them and I can give you some feedback, right? I don't expect perfection, right? It's not what I've said this whole time, and particularly even when we're talking about the syllabus at the very beginning on day one, right? Try your best, communicate with me, show me what you got. I understand there's a learning curve, and the only way I can sort of help you is if I understand where you're at, so you can show me where you're at, and then show me where you're having the problems, and then I can help you sort of get you over that sort of hump, whatever is tripping you up, right? So I'm almost done talking here. My throat is dry from this much talking. And here we wait, 98%. just move this over. Again, I'll just minimize that. Get ready to open up Illustrator here. 98%. I'm about to just abort this drawing, and we'll just pretend like again that this stuff might be exploded. But maybe I'll just show the preview here, right? So I'll just go back and do this test here. Here we go. Just open this up. My apologies. I guess I need a little more time here. It's at 98%. It just sort of remains there. And I want to have some time to help anybody else in class that needs it. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. I'll let this go in the background. Right. So after this is done generating Rhino, we can select it all in the top view, right, where it's going to be a true Axon drawing. The one that we're generating today would be a taller drawing, so it would actually have that vertical space frame up here, and then the sort of the roof space frame above that, right? And oh man, I really wanted to utilize that drawing. I'm just sort of waiting though, right? But again, once we bring this into Illustrator, right, all the layers that we had are still there. Make 2D viewport rectangle, scene silhouette curves, visible tangents, right? So we can begin to go around and delete certain things and turn other things on and off, right? So I can turn off the visible, oops. Look at these scene silhouette curves, start to clean things up. I don't need all of this detail in here for the sort of beefier scene silhouettes. I'll go ahead and delete some of that stuff. Again, just going around the edges and just sort of auditing the drawing, right? And that's kind of the word I would really use here. To edit, you sort of have to audit, right? Be your own sort of most critical eye and just go through and meticulously start to delete things that you don't need. And then you have to go through and add things and maybe in a nuanced way, start to change, some line weights and things like that here and there. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep going through. And just deleting things, right? Deleting all these little details of the inside of the space frame. I don't necessarily need to beef those up with the scene silhouette. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the visible layers, right? Just to the scene silhouette. Right. Now I turn that back on. It looks a little cleaner, right? Turn them back off. Do some more auditing and editing. Right? Just going through, taking my time. Again, take some pride in my drawing. I know it's going to be like, quality drawing here. So in that spirit, I wanted to just, do that, right? Any drawing that just takes 5 minutes and I just utilize whatever the computer spits out of me is like, come on, it's not going to be a good drawing, right? So you can't remove just the human touch here. Even if we're removing some of the analog tools, we still need the sort of hand of the designer here to sort of guide this stuff. Just going to, again, just sort of show some of the things I'm doing here. Just cleaning things up, right? Going around and, here I might need to just quickly draw a line, sort of close this in. There we are. Making sure that endpoints match up with other endpoints as I go around the silhouette, right? That corner is a little problematic. I'll zoom in on it. I'm not going to worry too much about these little stray details here, but around the edges, I think it's kind of a nice thing to sort of make these things really sort of line up in a nice way. There we are. Sometimes you just have to zoom in and out in order to see those details. So I have a little more cleanup to do here, right? Okay. And if you have the question, I want you over the weekend to start this process, right? And if you can complete it, then dang, that's great, because that's less work you have to do next week, right? But I want you to do it over the weekend as well, because if you start to have problems, then you can come in on Monday and be like, Josh, here's the problems I had. Show me what I'm doing wrong, right? You can share your screen. I can demonstrate stuff, right? We can, again, get you over the hump. so that as you're going through and editing these drawings and going back and just sort of touching up and cleaning up and tweaking your perspectives, right? Next week it'll all be about plugging them in to a sort of larger composition, a board or a poster, and then at the end of the the beginning of the following week you'll be able to submit that and turn it in for your project 1 grade. So it's key that you just keep up, work smart as well as hard, right? Okay, just going to go back to this. It's at 99%. I'm actually going to leave this up at the time being, but I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing at this point, and I'm going to stop recording.